All right, folks, you're preparing for the final exam in microeconomics, and a portion, the very first part of that final exam, is going to include a matching section. Now, that matching section is going to be split up into two parts. One part, the second part, is going to be a whole bunch of terms. There's going to be, I think, 25 terms that you have to be able to match to definitions. But the first part of the matching portion of the final exam is going to require you to match these 10 concepts to equations or formulas, better yet, formulas that are important in microeconomics. So you have to know a formula that would give you each one of these as the calculation or as the answer. Now, some of them are obvious, some of them are sort of a little more obscure, okay? So what I want to do right now really quickly is I want to go through these 10 formulas so that you can recall them, can refresh on them, and understand exactly what I'm looking for in this matching. Now, I said well, maybe I didn't say it, but there are 15 formulas that you're going to be given, but there's only 10 of these. So that means that you're going to use some of these more than one time. And so this is what I'm telling you, is that you need to know each one of these in at least two ways. And you can know each one of these in two ways. So let's go ahead and review them. What is profit equal to? Well, we know that the original equation, the profit equation that I gave you early in the semester, is equal to total revenue minus total cost. Okay? Now we're going to come back to this in just a couple minutes, so I can give you at least a second or maybe a third formula for profit. Okay? So now what did we say total revenue is equal to? Well, we know that total revenue is equal to price times quantity. That's the basic formula for total revenue. And we know that total cost is equal to fixed cost plus variable cost. Now, you could just as easily say variable cost plus fixed cost, because addition is commutative, so you can flip them around. Okay? Now, because total revenue is equal to price times quantity, and because total cost is equal to fixed cost plus variable cost, we could also say that profit is equal to price times quantity, because that's what total revenue is equal to, minus total cost. We could also say that profit is equal to total revenue minus fixed cost minus variable cost, because we distribute the negative here. Total cost is fixed cost plus variable cost, and then if we distribute the negative, it becomes minus fixed cost minus variable cost. So profit is also equal to total revenue minus fixed cost minus variable cost. And if you really want to push it further, we could combine both of these formulas and say that profit is equal to price times quantity minus fixed cost minus variable cost. So these are 4 different ways that you could represent profit. But that's not all. There are other ways you can represent profit. I'm just showing you how you're supposed to be able to understand these formulas. Now, because profit is equal to total revenue minus total cost, what I could do with this formula is I could add total cost to profit, and then I would have total revenue is equal to profit plus total cost. So I could also represent total revenue as profit plus total cost. Similarly, total cost, because that's in this formula, I could, let's say, add total cost to this side and then subtract profit from total revenue, and I could get total cost is equal to total revenue minus profit. This is what I mean by you have to be able to know each one of these concepts in multiple ways. Now let's move on to price and quantity there. Well, let's put price here. Well, price doesn't really have a formula. Price is what it is, and quantity is what it is. However, because price is a part of another formula, you see here, total revenue is equal to price times quantity. I could take this formula, divide by quantity on both sides, and get price. So we know that price is equal to total revenue divided by quantity, because we know if we multiply by quantity here and here, we would get total revenue equals price times quantity, which is the total revenue formula. We could do the exact same thing with quantity. We could divide by price here, and that'll cancel the P, and we'd have quantity is equal to total revenue divided by price. So we could have total revenue divided by price. Is this the formula for quantity? No, it is a formula for quantity. Quantity can be calculated in a lot of different ways. So can price, so can total cost, total revenue, and profit, because they are all related to each other in some way. All right, so let's go ahead and move on here to fixed cost. Well, fixed cost is interesting. Fixed cost, we usually don't really just calculate fixed cost. It's usually sort of a given thing, right? However, we can see that fixed cost is in several of these formulas over here. In its beginning form, fixed cost is a part of the total cost formula. So we could get fixed cost by subtracting variable cost on this side. We're just solving for fixed costs mathematically. Subtract variable cost here, subtract variable cost here, and we get fixed cost is equal to total cost minus variable cost. Total cost minus variable cost. So that's one way we can do fixed cost. We'll come back to that. We could also do a fixed cost up here. We could include profit in it. We could add fixed cost to both sides and then subtract profit from both sides, and we would get fixed cost is equal to total revenue minus variable cost minus profit. Okay? Now I probably won't go that far, but I want you to see that that's exactly the sort of thing that you can do. Let's talk about the same thing with variable cost. So variable cost is also a part of the total cost formula here. So we could get variable cost by subtracting fixed cost from here and here. That'll cancel fixed cost, and we'd have total cost minus fixed cost. So variable cost is equal to total cost minus fixed cost. You can also see that variable cost is in these formulas up here, and so we could do the exact same thing to solve for variable cost. All you're doing is you're taking a formula that has variable cost in it, and you're solving for variable cost. Now let's go to these last three here, the averages. We'll do the initial formula first, then we'll manipulate it. So average total cost, average variable cost, and average fixed cost, AFC, right? Now, the basic formula, what you initially learned is the way that you get average total cost is if you know total cost, that's going to be total cost divided by quantity, because average total cost is the per unit of quantity value of total cost. If we took a little bit of total cost and distributed the same piece to every single quantity, you would get average total cost. In the very same way, you could get average variable cost. That's variable cost divided by quantity, and average fixed cost is the fixed cost of the company divided by their quantity of production. And so these are the basic formulas for average total cost, average variable cost, and average fixed cost. Now I want you to notice something, that this one has variable cost in it, and this one has fixed cost in it, and this one has total cost in it. So what we could do here is we could actually solve for total cost with the average total cost formula. If I multiply both sides by Q, multiply by Q here, cancel the Q, multiply by Q here, I have total cost is equal to quantity times average total cost. So total cost could be equal to average total cost times quantity, right? Because of this formula over here. Similarly, I could do the same thing for fixed cost and variable cost. For average variable cost, if I multiply by Q, that'll cancel the Q, and I'll have variable cost is equal to quantity times average variable cost. So variable cost is equal to average variable cost times quantity. Same thing with fixed cost. If I multiply by quantity on this side, it'll cancel Q, and all I'll have left is fixed cost. So if I multiply by Q on this side, I get quantity times average fixed cost. So fixed cost is the same thing as average fixed cost times quantity. Okay? And now, because there's quantity in all three of these formulas, I can also solve for quantity and put that down here. So quantity could be equal to, for example, here, if I multiply both sides by quantity, I get this right here. I get total cost is equal to average total cost times quantity. Now, if I divide by average total cost on both sides, so here's what I mean. I'll do it over here. We know that average total cost is equal to total cost divided by quantity. So now if I multiply by quantity on both sides, that'll cancel quantity here, and I'll have quantity times average total cost is equal to total cost. Now if I divide by average total cost on both sides, you can see I get quantity is equal to total cost divided by average total cost, and therefore I can put that over here. Quantity is equal to total cost divided by average total cost. In the very same way, it would be the same as variable cost divided by average variable cost, and it would be the same thing as fixed cost divided by average, average fixed cost. Okay? So if you divide total cost by average total cost, you get quantity. Divide variable cost by average variable cost, you get quantity. Divide fixed cost by average fixed cost, you get quantity. Okay, so these are all different ways that you could calculate quantity, and any one of them is fair game on my matching part of the final exam. All right, so now let's get rid of this. Let's see, what else can I do here? We probably have price. I bet there's another way to calculate price. Well, yeah, because total revenue is equal to price times quantity, or price is equal to total revenue divided by quantity, we could put one of the things that quantity is equal to in here. And so, since price is equal to total revenue divided by quantity, and we know that quantity is equal to total cost divided by average total cost, so we have total revenue. I'm going a bit far here. I'm not sure if I'd go this far, but total cost divided by average total cost. We're dividing by a fraction, divide by total cost over average total cost, and that's total revenue divided, which means to keep, flip, or change, flip, whatever they say. So total revenue, change to multiply, flip this side, average total cost over total cost, and now price becomes equal to total revenue times average total cost divided by total cost. And I know that's really crazy. I don't think I'd go that far, but I want to show you, I just want you to see the sorts of things that you can do mathematically with these formulas. Okay? All right, I wanted to show you maybe just one or two more of these. That one was sort of a stretch, that price. What else could we do here? Here, average total cost, in addition to being equal to total cost divided by quantity, it's also equal to average variable cost plus average fixed cost. So I want you to remember that. That's a basic one. You need to know that. And therefore, it's also going to be equal to variable cost divided by quantity plus fixed cost divided by quantity, because average variable cost is variable cost divided by quantity. And because average total cost is equal to average variable cost plus average fixed cost, I could also subtract average fixed cost from here and get average variable cost is equal to average total cost minus average fixed cost. Similarly, average fixed cost is equal to average total cost minus average variable cost. And so just to give you an idea, you're going to do much better on this part of the final exam if you're just good with understanding mathematically what these formulas are. And all you have to do is manipulate them on paper until you come up with the formula that matches it. Okay? So this is the first part. Like I said, it's going to be 15 of them. There's 10 terms. Each one is going to be used at least one time. Some of them are going to be used more than once. Okay? Now we're going to move on to the second part of this, of the matching part of the final exam. All right, folks. So you're reviewing for the final exam. And remember that the first part of the final exam is a bunch of economics terms, and you have to kind of select the term that goes with the definition. And so what I'm going to do in this part of this video is, now that we've gone over all the formulas that you need to remember, now we're going to go over all of the terms that you need to understand from economics. Okay? So I have basically put them in order of when you learn them. So over here we have kind of Unit 1 at the beginning of the semester, all the way over here to Unit 3 at the end of the semester. And so what we're going to do is we're going to sort of travel through the semester as we go over each of these concepts. Okay? So do you remember at the very beginning of the semester I said that there are in microeconomics there's firms, that's businesses, and there's households, that's individuals or groups of individuals. And that firms are primarily concerned with earning profit, and that individuals are primarily concerned with experiencing satisfaction or utility. Okay, so utility, if you'll recall, that's basically like the happiness or the satisfaction that individuals get when they consume stuff. Okay, so when I say consume, I don't necessarily mean eat. I mean when you drive a car, you're consuming the car. When you use your phone, you're consuming your phone. Not consuming in a like an eating sense, but consuming in that you're using its usefulness. Okay, and so utility is the satisfaction and the usefulness that individuals get out of the products that they purchase or that they acquire. Okay, and remember, then we said that there's overall utility. There's all of the satisfaction that people get. Then there's marginal utility. Remember, the word marginal means the little bit more that you get. The little bit more that you get when you do one more. So when you do one more thing, how much little bit more do you get? So marginal utility, that's the little bit of extra satisfaction from consuming one more unit of something that you're consuming. So let's say you're eating chips. How much satisfaction will you get out of eating one more chip? Well, that satisfaction would be the marginal utility of that chip. How much more happiness would you get from one more hour of playing a video game? Well, that would be the marginal utility of that video game for 1 hour. Okay, so marginal utility is the little bit of extra utility that you get from consuming one more item. All right, now what is a budget line? Well, I want you to remember at the beginning of the semester, let's see if I can squeeze one in right here, or I'll put it right here. A budget line is it's a straight line, and typically what you'll have is you'll have a graph that has a relationship between two goods, which we'll call good A and B or good X and Y. And a budget line is a constraint based on the income of the consumer. So a person wants to buy some of this item, like maybe some pizza, and they also want to buy some soda, and they want to consume both pizza and soda. Well, they can buy all pizza, and then what they would do, it's a relationship of their income. So they would divide their income by the price of the pizza, and then the other opportunity or the other situation is that they could buy all soda, right? And so we would divide their income by how much a soda, costs. And then what we do is we draw a straight line. That's not really a straight line. We draw a straight line between these two, and we get this straight line, and that is basically the limitation of your income. A budget line is the limitation of a consumer's income. And it represents the combination of all of the possible pairs of X and Y that person can afford. And everything on the inside, this is what they can afford. And everything on the outside, they can't afford because they can't. So if there was this many, let's say this was, let's say this many was 7 slices of pizza, and up here is 5 sodas. Well, they can't afford 7 slices of pizza and 5 sodas because it is outside of the budget line. So a budget line basically is just a visual representation of the limitations of the income of a consumer when they're interested in making a decision between purchasing quantities of 2 goods. Okay? And very similar to a budget line is an indifference curve. Now, an indifference curve is basically a visual representation of the satisfaction that a person can get from consuming 2 goods. Lots of combinations of 2 goods. So every point along this indifference curve gives the same utility. That's the key to indifference curve. So you would definitely want to write next to the word indifference curve, same utility for all combinations of goods. So if they consume 3 and 3, they would get the same utility as if they consumed 1 and 7. Okay, that's the same utility. So all of the combinations along one indifference curve give the same utility, the same satisfaction to the consumer. Okay, so that is an indifference curve. All right, let's talk about marginal cost and marginal revenue. Then we turned over, after talking about utility for a little while, then we decided to start talking about businesses and firms and their profits, because they want to maximize profit. And one of the things that we learned is that the way that a business determines their profit is with the profit equation, okay? And that includes both revenues and costs. And we talked about that just a few minutes ago in the previous video, or in the previous section of this video, the formulas for profit and total revenue and total cost. But marginal cost and marginal revenue are different concepts. Remember that the word marginal means the little bit extra that you get from doing one more thing. And so in this case, the marginal cost of a business is the addition to total cost. How much does total cost, I'm going to put a little total here, how much does total cost go up if you were to produce one more unit? So if a business, let's say they're making 55 units, 55 cars, okay? And they think, well, how much would our costs go up by if we produced 56 cars? If we produce one more car, how much will our total cost go up by? That is marginal cost. In the very same way, marginal revenue is the calculation or the understanding of how much total revenue would go up by if we produced and sold one more unit. Well, what if we sold one more car? What if we sold a 56th car? We're already ready to sell 55 cars. If we sell one more car, how much will our revenues go up by? And that is called marginal revenue. So marginal revenue is related to total revenue, and marginal cost is related to total cost. It's how much each one of these will go up by if you were to produce and sell one more unit. Okay? All right, so that's marginal cost, marginal revenue. All right, let's go over here and talk about short run and long run. Okay? So this has to do with fixed costs mainly. Remember that total cost is equal to variable cost. That's an ugly T right there. That's probably one of the ugliest T's I have ever created. Total cost is equal to fixed cost plus variable cost. In the short run is a period of decision making for a business in which they have both variable costs and fixed costs. So their decision making is limited by the structure of their fixed costs and then the situation of their variable costs. But in the short run, businesses are limited in their decision making because some of their costs are fixed and some of their costs are variable. However, not so in the long run. In the long run, fixed costs equals zero. And because fixed costs equals zero, total cost is equal to fixed cost plus variable cost. Fixed cost is zero, so that's zero plus variable cost. So in the long run, total cost is equal to variable cost. And what that means is that all costs are variable for the company in the long run. So the long run is a time period within a business when all costs are variable. All right? And so now let's move on to substitutes and complements. All right, let's talk about substitutes and complements. Okay? This is a quality of a good related to other goods. Okay, so these concepts of substitute and complement are an issue of their relationship to other products that are out there on the market. Okay, so like for example, a car. A car is a complement. What's a car? A car is a complement to gasoline. They go together. You buy a car, you buy the gasoline. You're not going to buy gasoline unless you have a car. So a car and gasoline are complements to each other. Complement means that these two products go together. They are consumed jointly. consumed jointly. When two products are consumed jointly, they go together like peanut butter and jelly. They are complements. But substitutes are the opposite. A substitute for a car is the city bus. You could ride the bus instead of driving a car to work, and therefore a bus is a substitute for a car. Similarly, a motorcycle is a substitute for a car. Carpooling with other friends where one person drives, or workmates, one person drives, they come pick you up at your house instead of driving your car. That is a substitute. So with a substitute, it's where two products are perceived. They are perceived by consumers to fulfill the same need. When two products are perceived to fulfill the same need, they are considered to be substitute products. They are substitutes of one another. Okay? Now let's talk about the law of demand and the law of supply. Both of these, law of demand and law of supply, are relationships between P and Q, relationships between price and quantity in a business. The law of demand represents a negative relationship between price and quantity, and the law of supply represents a positive relationship between price and quantity. So the law of demand basically says, in a market for a product, generally speaking, as the price of the product goes down, the quantity demanded of the product goes up. So and then we could very similarly say that the law of demand says that in the market for a product, as the price of the product goes up, the quantity demanded goes down. And so that is a negative relationship between price and quantity. But the law of supply says the opposite. The law of supply says that as quantity gets larger, price also gets larger. As quantity supplied goes up, the price has to go up. But if quantity supplied goes down, then the price can go down also. So that is a positive relationship between price and quantity. That is the law of supply. All right? Okay, let's go over. We're just about halfway done here. So let's come over here and talk about these marginals. So what we did then was we went on after supply and demand, and we started talking about factor markets. Factor markets. And in factor markets, although actually I think we talked about elasticity first, then we talked about factor markets, but we're going to go ahead and do it in this order. Remember that the word marginal means when you use one more, when you use one more thing, when you produce one more quantity, when you consume one more item. In this case, it's when you employ one more factor of production. Employ one more factor of production. And that factor of production can be a worker, and labor. It can be one more of some kind of capital, like one more power saw or one more truck or something like that. When you employ one more factor of production, what's going to happen to your business? Well, marginal revenue product is how much will total revenue, this is just like marginal revenue over here, but with this marginal revenue, it's when your production goes up by one more quantity unit. This one is how much will your total revenue go up when you employ one more factor of production. How much will your revenue from production go up when you hire one more employee, when you buy one more truck or something like that? So marginal revenue product is how much your total revenue is going to change when you employ one more factor of production. Similarly, the marginal factor cost, and this would be total cost, This is how much your total cost is going to go up by when you employ one more factor of production. So how much will my costs go up by if I hire one more employee? How much will my total cost go up by if I buy one more truck, or if I lease one more truck, or if I buy one more drill, or one more power saw, or one more computer? Okay, so how much will my total cost go up by if I employ one more factor of production? And then marginal physical product, okay, this has to do with quantity. So physical product is quantity. And this is now saying, how much will my quantity go up? How much more stuff will I produce if I employ one more factor of production? How much will my quantity change? So this is going to be the change in quantity, where this one is going to be the change in total cost, and this one is going to be the change in total revenue. This is not a division. I don't think of this as a math problem. Okay, this is just simply saying, how much is my quantity going to change by if I employ one more factor of production? Because the assumption is that if you hire another worker, that you're going to have more stuff produced. That if you buy one more computer, that you'll be able to produce more stuff. That if you buy one more power saw, that you'll be able to produce more quantity that you can then sell out there in the market. Okay, so these three all basically say marginal. If I employ one more factor of production, how will my total revenue change? How will my total cost change? And how will my quantity produced change? Okay. All right, let's now come down here to elasticity. Elasticity. Remember that elasticity is the sensitivity to a change in typically price, but this one is sensitivity to a change in income. So here we have price. This one, cross elasticity of demand, that's also price related to substitutes and complements. So price elasticity of a substitute or complement, and then here's price elasticity. This one is price elasticity of demand, price elasticity of supply, and then price elasticity of demand for a substitute or complement product. Okay? And then this one right here is income elasticity of demand. And here's how it goes. How sensitive is the change in quantity demanded? So we're going to say over here, change in quantity demanded. Here, change in quantity demanded. Here, change in quantity demanded. And here is going to be change in quantity supplied. How sensitive is our company, what we're producing, the stuff we're producing, how sensitive is our change in quantity demanded when our price changes, when there is a change in price? How much will our we know that there is a negative relationship between price and quantity demanded. That's the law of demand. So when our price goes up, our quantity is going to go down. Down. When our price goes up, our quantity is going to go down for sure, because there's a negative relationship between price and quantity demanded. And price elasticity of demand is the idea of how sensitive is our quantity demanded to price. Income elasticity of demand, well, we know when people's incomes change that they will buy more or buy less. And it really depends on whether the product is a normal good or an inferior good, right? But you don't have to know that for right now. All you're doing, you just need a definition for this. And so very simply, when consumers' incomes change, when there's a change in income, how sensitive will the demand for our product, the quantity demanded for our product, be? That's income elasticity of demand. Cross elasticity of demand is the sensitivity of the change in quantity demanded of our stuff when there is a change in price of related goods, complements and substitutes. So when the price of peanut butter goes up, what will happen to our jelly? When the price of peanut butter goes up, how sensitive will people be to buying our jelly? Will they still buy the same amount of jelly? That means they're unrelated. Or will they buy less jelly? Because if the price over there goes up, they're going to buy less peanut butter. If they buy less jelly, then that means they're complements. So how sensitive is the quantity demanded of our product if there's a price change in some other related product? Okay, so we're going to put the word related right in here. Related, price change in a related product, quantity demanded of our product. That's probably enough for you to know. And then lastly here, what if we have a change in price? What if there's a change in price? How sensitive or how capable are we of changing our quantity supplied? If the price goes up, can we produce more? Because there's a positive relationship between price and quantity supplied. That's the law of supply. And so, if the price goes up, can we flexibly produce more and match the demand and take advantage of the increase in price so we supply more? Or are we limited? So how sensitive our company is to being able to change quantity supplied when there's a change in price, that's price elasticity of supply. All right, so now let's go over to that was Unit 2 right there. In fact, for the most part, this is kind of Unit 1 over here up to about here. Then starting here is Unit 2. And then over there in that last column is Unit 3. So let's look at heterogeneous product and homogeneous product. Now I'm going to warn you something right now. You are going to mix up heterogeneous product and homogeneous product with maybe with substitute and complement. Very, very, very likely. So it's very important for you to understand the difference between substitute and complement and then heterogeneous and homogeneous product. Now you can rewind and you can hear me talk about substitute and complement if you want to, but just let's talk about heterogeneous and homogeneous real quick. Heterogeneous product means so, heterogeneous product means that in an industry, all of the products in that industry are perceived as very different from one another. Whereas homogeneous product is in an industry, all of the products that are sold by all the different businesses are all basically, they're perceived as being all basically the same. So the idea here is the perception of the consumer and the reality of the product. Corn from one company oftentimes is perceived as the same as corn from another company. All the companies that sell corn are all selling basically the same thing in the eyes of the consumers. Therefore, that would be a homogeneous product. So, homogeneous product is going to be all products are basically seen as the same. Hetero meaning different, homo meaning same. Heterogeneous is all products are perceived as being different in an industry. Okay, so that's heterogeneous versus homogeneous product. And now here we are right here at the end. Perfect competition, monopoly, monopolistic competition, and oligopoly. All right. You probably recall this. You can go back to your notes for this. But perfect competition is a market structure. All of these are market structures, right? Market structures. Perfect competition has many sellers. Now, they all have many buyers. Many buyers, many buyers, many buyers, many buyers. They all have many buyers. But in perfect competition, there's many sellers. In monopoly, there's one seller. In monopolistic competition, also many sellers. In oligopoly, there are few sellers, right? As far as market power, in perfect competition, they are price takers. Price takers, which means no power. They have no market power. In monopoly, they are price setters. Price setters, which means they have much power. Similarly, oligopolies are price setters. Price setters. They also have much power, much market power. Now, technically, monopolistic competition, they are also price setters. But their market power, even though they do have market power, we're gonna call it some power. They don't have as much power as the oligopolies and the monopolies, usually. Sometimes they do, but usually they don't. So we're just going to say they have some power. They're still price setters. Now, perfect competition has no barriers to entry and exit. Monopolistic competition has what we call low barriers to entry and exit. But monopoly and oligopoly, they have high barriers. And technically, I say that monopoly has extremely high barriers. But high barriers to entry and exit. Okay, so that's three of the dimensions of market structure. Perfect competition sells a homogeneous product. Homogeneous product, just like all the products are the same. But in monopolistic competition, they sell a heterogeneous product. In monopolistic competition, the products are perceived as being extremely different. Now, monopoly, irrelevant. There's only one seller, so it doesn't matter whether their product is the same or different because there's only one seller. In oligopoly, it can be either one. Oligopolies sometimes sell homogeneous products, sometimes they sell heterogeneous products. But one of the key components of monopolistic competition is that they sell a heterogeneous product. And one of the key components of perfect competition is that they sell a homogeneous product. And then there is information symmetry, okay? And so there is perfect information in perfect competition. There is imperfect information in monopolistic competition. Oligopoly, what I said in class is that it's very secretive. They're very secretive. And so they also, we're just going to say they have imperfect information. Okay? All right, that's it. These are your 25 terms that you have to know for the final matching. You have to select the term that goes along with the definition. I just went over all the definitions. Now let me say something about that this is all the terms, and the formulas are part one, the very first part of your final exam. That's half of your final exam. The other half of your final exam is going to be multiple choice questions. And those multiple choice questions, most of them are going to come from your practice exams. So what I'm encouraging you to do is go back to the 3 practice exams and redo the practice exam from Unit 1, redo the practice exam from Unit 2, and redo the practice exam from Unit 3. And I'm going to base all of the multiple choice questions on the final exam from those 3 practice exams. Okay? And this is it. You're right here at the end of the semester. You're prepping for the final exam. It's almost over. So don't slow down. Keep up and make it a good finish. And I will see you in class.